What's going on? Welcome into Bayou Bengals Football Talk. So let's get into it. Listening to Brian Kelly's press conference, he said some interesting things. He was talking about the secondary. He said they've used Sage Ryan at both corner and nickel. So what this tells me is Sage Ryan is having a really good camp, because I don't think he would specifically mention Sage Ryan's name and then explain that they're utilizing him at corner and safety. So to me, that shows that Sage Ryan must be having a really nice camp. And I like Sage Ryan's game, this guy that shows the ability to cover man-to-man in the slot. He does a lot of nice things. So I like the ability Sage Ryan shows. I think he's going to be a really good player for LSU this year. And he mentioned Andre Sam, Deuce Chestnut, Ashton Stamps was brought up by the reporter. So all the guys' names that were mentioned are a lot of guys getting a lot of the hype at this point. So touched on Denver Harris as well. Here's the Denver Harris news. So it sounds like he just said he's going through a personal issue. We'll be back, hopefully back this weekend. So you got to get Denver Harris back. It's good to have depth at the cornerback position. So it'll be really good to get Denver Harris back on this football team. And he talked about how, Brian Kelly says a lot of the things I've said. He's talking about how this is a veteran defensive back group, I think, which is really cool, especially for LSU. You want to have a veteran group returning. Obviously, you would want ideally more high-end level talent in this secondary. I don't know if that's necessarily there, but I like that he said this is a veteran group, and it certainly is. It's a group that has a chance to be really good. So Zy Alexander, Chestnut, Major Burns, Andre Sam, a lot of the guys that he's mentioning doing nice things. So a strong veteran unit. So I'm really it was really cool to hear Brian Kelly talk about that. He was talking about Omar Speights, talked about how, some guys are more of the in-the-box, just run stuffers, but can't really move well in coverage. Or some guys can just move well in coverage, but when you put them in the box, they have trouble working through traffic, taking on bigger offensive linemen, shedding those blocks. It becomes a problem for him. Omar Speights is a special player because he can do both those things. So I thought that was really cool, Brian Kelly mentioning that about Omar Speights. So Omar Speights, I've talked about him a lot, but I'm going to keep talking about him. I think he's a really good talent. Don't be surprised if he's one of the top linebackers coming off the board in next year's draft. So I really like Omar Speights' game. I think he brings an excellent skill set to this LSU football team, and I'm going to be excited to see what impact not only makes week 1 against Florida State, but what impact he makes this entire season. So yeah, the LSU linebacking core are going to be really strong. I really need to watch Harold Perkins' highlights again. This dude is so fun to watch that his highlights are worth a second watch. So I love what this guy can do. I mean, the acceleration, change of direction, all the movement skills just off the charts for Harold Perkins. So looking forward to seeing how he plays this year. He's a special talent as well. A guy that just really, you hope he really bursts and takes another step this year. The coaching staff doing their due diligence to move him around, get him so the offense has to account for him in different ways he lines up. So yeah, this guy is a problem. I like the nickname. Someone had a nickname in the comments for him, the Boogeyman. I think that's perfect for Harold Perkins, because it seems like and the guy mentioned when he's chasing someone, it seems like you just don't get away from him. So fan of what Harold Perkins can do. He's a really good player, really athletic linebacker, so I'm excited to see what he does this year. I was listening to and then Brian Kelly was talking about the offensive line. It sounded like they moved DJ Chester's playing center. That might ideally be a better fit for him. I think he can play guard too. When I watch his high school tape, I actually think he projects well to guard. But to me, what that tells me, maybe Chester has shown enough that he is going to challenge for that starting center's position over Charles Turner. Charles Turner, a talented guy with experience that you want to get on the field, but if DJ Chester is that talented, then maybe you do kind of move. Maybe you do have to kind of look to move on from Charles Turner at the starting center position and get DJ Chester on the field. Because to me, this LSU team is interesting. Like, you have some veteran guys that are good, that are pretty solid, like Dellinger and Charles Turner. To me, those might be, no disrespect, maybe the weaker links on the offensive line, but those are guys that, if you really want to win a national title, to me, if you could upgrade from those guys, not that they're bad players. I don't mean any disrespect. I'm not taking, but if you can upgrade from those guys, if Chester it truly is better than Turner or Dellinger, or Zealand's Hurd is better. They got Hurd at right tackle. That's what I saw when I saw practice. if those guys are truly better than those guys, then you're going to have to get them on the field, because to win a national championship and to win an SEC championship, you got to have as high a level play as possible in the trenches. So to me, if they have better, if Hurd, Chester, some of these young guys are better, or even Lunsford from Maryland, you got to get them on the field, and you got to make up a strong core starting 5 offensive line unit that is as talented as possible, and you got to get the best 5 guys out there in whatever combination possible. So yeah, that was something. And then Brian Kelly, he did say something along those lines about getting the top 5 guys out there. I think that's absolutely critical to the success of this LSU team. Not only that's always the case for most programs. I heard Sarkisian talk about that at Texas. You want to get the best 5 offensive linemen out there, not the best 5 that fit, not the best 5 that play the best at a certain position, but the 5 very best offensive linemen. Meaning, if we have to move a guy that normally plays tackle to center, we'll do that. Or DJ Chester, a guy that projects well to guard. To me, that must just be how well how highly they think of DJ Chester's play as of right now. But all right, so we'll talk the wide receiver core. So let's really break this down for a minute. So Malik Neighbors is an NFL skill set. You don't really have to break him down too much. I know I said that last time, but you know Malik Neighbors is going to get his. You know he's going to have a great season. You know he's going to do a lot of nice things for this LSU football team. But Brian Thomas, can we see? To me, I worry about Brian Thomas, and I don't mean worry that he's bad or going to have a bad season, because he's not going to have a bad season. This is a guy that has a skill set that he's going to have a high floor. But I worry that, you know, there's some buzz that he's a breakout candidate this year, and I worry that, to me, I think Brian Thomas, you know, Denbrock said he's going to work on the route tree this year. They're going to run some different routes. You know, their strong suit was some of the curls, the comeback routes, and stuff like that. But to me, Brian Thomas, that's kind of what his game is. You know, I don't know if he's that guy that you really want to run. You really want him running 12 back to 10 out, you know, consistently running out routes, or deep crosses, or you know, post routes. I don't think that's Brian Thomas's game. I think he is the curl, maybe make one guy miss, you know, because he's not great after the catch. You know, I'm not trying to take shots at him. He's just not. He's solid after the catch. You know, he can usually make the first guy miss, but he doesn't usually make multiple guys miss. So I think that's asking too much of Brian Thomas to really expand his route tree. I could be wrong though, but Brian Thomas, I just got to go by what I've seen. As a scout, that's kind of the aha moment I've had in scouting. If you scout a guy, maybe it's a game or two, maybe it's highlights. You know, just watching highlights isn't good, but if you really watch a guy and he plays a certain way, and you see the things he's good at, and there's just a lot of things that he doesn't do at a high level, or he doesn't do at all, or you don't see them pull up, then you just assume that. Then you have to just assume, because scouting is a projection. So you just have to project. In predicting, it's about predicting the future. You're just going to have to predict that he can't do it. Because that's the thing, you know, to me, since they haven't really seen Brian Thomas expand his route running, then if you're saying that he's going to become a breakout candidate, then you're kind of just going off of strictly hope. You're kind of just basing, that opinion is kind of, that conclusion or whatever, that hypothesis is really based off of no evidence necessarily. So that's my spiel with Brian Thomas. But he's a good, solid player, high floor guy. You know, maybe it kind of reminds me of, it's similar to maybe like Ruben Randall at LSU. Maybe a guy that projects as a solid college wide receiver, but doesn't really have doesn't have enough high-end level traits to project to the NFL. But I don't want to make this sound like I'm burping Brian Thomas. I like Brian Thomas, but yeah, he is limited. It appears to be. But yeah, Malik Neighbors, NFL skill set, absolutely. Malik Neighbors, I could go on and on about Malik Neighbors. You see it all from Malik Neighbors. I mean, ability to win versus high-end level corners like Kool-Aid McKinstry, can get open on in-breaking routes, got excellent hands, excellent after the catch. It has to be, hopefully you see him become more of a red zone threat this year. I guess that is the one knock per se on Malik Neighbors, but a very talented wide receiver nonetheless. And then, yeah, the tight end, it continues to be a topic of conversation. Connor Gilbreth they're talking about. Mike Denbrock was talking about how he's swimming a little bit mentally. Sounds like he's there from a physical standpoint, the effort, the competitive toughness. This guy that is an excellent blocker, so I'm really excited to see, what Gilbreath does this year. Sounds like, from what I've seen, I've really liked of his highlights. Sounds like he's a guy that can play tight end or tackle. I think is that maybe like the new hybrid type of player in college football. But yeah, I'm a fan of what Gilbreath can do. I think he's going to have an excellent season this year, and I think he brings a really nice added dimension. And I've talked about this before. I think all the tight ends all complement each other really well, and I think they've done a really good job of getting different tight ends to really improve this team. So excited about Connor Gilbreath. Obviously excited about Mason Taylor. Mason Taylor still kind of sounds like he might be fully healthy, recovering from a surgery in the offseason. I believe it was on his shoulder. So, yeah, they need to get Mason. Hopefully Mason Taylor stays healthy for this team and has another season like he did as a true freshman. So, yeah, Mason Taylor, talented guy. Connor Gilbreath, talented guy. Mac Markway, Kamaran Pimpton. They got some nice talent on this football team, and it's really exciting to hear good things about the tight end room. But, yeah. So I'll go back to the offensive line for a minute. I think, yeah, DJ Chester, boy, I hope, I could be wrong about DJ Chester. I really like DJ Chester's tape. Zealand's Hurd gets a lot of the buzz for this team, but I think that Chester has an excellent skill set. I think he's strong, he's powerful, he can hold his blocks. He's aggressive. I think all the skills you're looking for in an offensive lineman were all there in DJ Chester's game. So I'm really excited to see. Maybe he does win that starting center position. I just don't. To me, and you guys can comment on this, is Brian Kelly that type of guy? Is he truly going to go with the best guys, regardless of, does he not give the nod to the veterans? I think that is I think it poses an interesting question, honestly. Do they really just want to roll with? Do they really just want to roll with Campbell, Emory, Jones, Frazier? Do they want to go with the three best guys and then take the two guys that are the most experienced? Maybe they're not the best guys. I know this is all speculation because maybe Chester hasn't looked as good as maybe Turner and Dellinger have improved and they're still better than Chester. But based on my scouting, I just got to go by what I've seen. Watching DJ Chester, I know it's just high school footage, but a lot of what a guy can do in high school translates to the college level. So does Chester actually that much better? Or is Chester perform that much better that they have to play him? But even if, I guess the case is, even if Chester's a little bit better or Hurd's a little bit better, is that what gets them to the nod over those guys? I think it's interesting, and I guess we'll find out. It's all speculation. I know reporters are dying to see the depth chart. That's what I'm looking forward to. The Week 1 game against Florida State. Who are the starters out there? What is the official depth chart for LSU? I'm very, very excited to see that. So, but yeah. And then the running back room. Yeah, the running back room is going to be interesting. Josh Williams, super competitive guy, a guy that can catch. He can run between the tackles. He's tough. Guy that's got a lot of experience, been on the team since the 2019 national title team. And then there's Noah Cain. I was listening to Noah Cain, was interviewed the other day. Sounds like a great guy, hungry to work, enjoys playing for the running backs coach, and it sounds like a guy he's ready to get ready to be put in whenever his name gets called upon. So Noah Cain, Josh Williams, really talented guy. Logan Diggs seems to be the guy that gets the most buzz from the media. To me, when I watched Logan Diggs' tape, and I think this is a guy he's got good vision, and I like his patience, but his patience is almost a negative at times. Like, you want to be patient, but like, patience really sometimes can only work for really elite running backs. Like, with Logan Diggs, sometimes it hinders him. Sometimes it turns him from only getting a 1 yard or 2 yard gain, instead of if he would have just hit the smaller hole and fall forward, he probably could have gotten 3 yards. So I think sometimes patience kind of is to a guy's detriment at running back, especially, not to say Logan Diggs doesn't have a good skill set, but I think he has a limited skill set in the sense where he can't always be a patient. He can't always run with patience. I think it's going to cost them yards over the course of a season. And I'm all about, like I touched on with Harold Perkins and Spates, elite linebackers and speed on the defense, how it saves you yards. As a running back, your goal is to get positive yards each play. And that's actually the bare minimum. Ideally, you want 3-4 yards per carry. That's kind of the norm across football. But to me, you know, Logan Diggs, I'm sure that's going to frustrate the coaching staff real quick. If he's dancing around like that and he's only getting 1 or 2 yards, that could really become an issue. So Logan Diggs, exciting to see how he does. He's kind of the guy that the media gets a lot of buzz from. And I mean, there's things to like. I mean, he has good long speed. It's not necessarily elite, but he does have the ability to break off some longer runs. You saw in the South Carolina game, he had a longer reception for a touchdown. So yeah, Logan Diggs brings a nice skill set, and he'll be right in the mix, and I'm sure we'll see him at some point. Maybe it is against Florida State. That'll be that's the burning question, is who plays against Florida State, number one, how many backs do they rotate, number two, and if one guy goes off or is a key contributor in that game, who isn't? So those are the 3 burning questions, I guess, with the running backs heading into the Florida State game. So, and then Brian Kelly was talking about Mason Smith. It said Mason Smith kind of dealing with an injury, and I like what he said, that they're being careful with him. You know, and maybe this is a little unfair, but Brian Kelly has been in the game for a long time, and this coaching staff understands that a guy like, you cannot put a price on a guy like Mason Smith at college football. I don't care what level of college football. A guy that's that disruptive on the interior in the modern era. Like, I'm watching Hard Knocks last night. You see Quinnen Williams for the Jets got paid. You know, defense, high-end elite defensive tackles are getting paid in the NFL, and LSU has one at the collegiate level. So you do not want to mess around and get this guy hurt. Obviously, you don't want to be too unfair with the other guys and baby him too much where he's not practicing as hard as the other guys, but you want to be a little bit cautious, because you know what kind of difference maker this guy is. You saw when he went down in that Florida State game, the whole trajectory, I wouldn't say the whole trajectory of this game changed, but a lot of the game changed when Mason Smith went out of that football game. So yeah, Mason Smith going to play a huge role. Just the congestion this guy can cause. He's a talented defensive tackle, and I think he has a really big season. Hopefully LSU can keep him healthy the entire year. I think they will do that. So yeah, excited to see what Mason Smith does this season. Need to keep him healthy, being a little bit more cautious with him so he can stay healthy. But yeah, we'll touch on the defensive line some more. So yeah, Gilroy, you know, I've touched on this. Gilroy's a guy that LSU really needs to have a big season. If there's one guy that's going to be a true maybe the unsung hero. I know I threw out a couple names for potential unsung heroes, but the more I look at it, I think the unsung hero is Jacobian Gilroy. Gilroy, a talented football player, a guy who is pretty stout in the middle. Sounds like he's really unselfish, is willing to eat up double teams to help his teammates make plays and keep his linebackers clear. So I really like that about Jacobian Gilroy. So they need him to have an excellent season this year. So I want to talk Garrett Nussmeier. So to me, Garrett Nussmeier, I kind of like, I don't know if I'd say I like it. I think it's intriguing, the unknown with Garrett Nussmeier. Like, my initial take is, I think that he has a really high-end level potential. I think that he maybe is the answer as far as to really fully unlock the vertical passing game. But to me, was the Georgia game kind of the absolute, maybe not absolute, but was this Georgia game kind of more of the ceiling as opposed to the floor? I think that's, like, if that's the ceiling, then Nussmeier still could be a good quarterback, maybe even a really good quarterback. But if that is like the floor, the way he played against Georgia, then you got to believe he could potentially be a really elite quarterback for LSU. So the potential all there for a guy like Garrett Nussmeier. Really fun player to watch. You know, the way he talks, it seems like he is a guy, I can see him a guy that's just not afraid to take risks. Maybe he's a guy who and not that he's a criminal, but a guy that probably takes some risks and has been bold in his life. So I think I like that about him. You know, what is the term for it? Gunslinger. So I think, yeah, Nussmeier, I think, is really a true gunslinger. And yeah, I think they are expecting when he gets his opportunity, if that comes at a certain point this year, hopefully it's not due, well, you really don't want him to play at all this season because, you know, it would mean usually one of a couple of bad things. But yeah, Nussmeier, I guess the point I'm trying to make is that it'll be intriguing to see Nussmeier again. I think that Georgia game left you with it's kind of like a cliffhanger in a movie. It's leaving you wanting more to see from his game. So yeah, Nussmeier, really a nice talent. It was fun to hear him interviewed yesterday. So yeah, we'll see how much he plays, and we will, you know, see, you know, if he does come in, say because Jaden Daniels is not performing well, which is not a good thing. We'll see if he's ready to go. I assume he would be ready to go, but we'll see if we can see more of the things, the high-end level play we saw against Georgia, as opposed to him, you know, taking a step back and you know, maybe turning the ball over a little too much, kind of forcing issues. So yeah, I guess hopefully the guy we saw against Georgia is more so the guy we see come either next year if he gets a chance to play, or in the future when he does lock down the starting job. But all right, so yeah, we'll talk Jaden Daniels. I haven't really talked Jaden Daniels too much. I know there's not really a whole lot to say, I guess, with Jaden Daniels at this point that already hasn't been said. But I guess what I would say about Jaden Daniels is, you know, he's a legitimate threat as a runner. You know, you got to believe that opposing defensive coordinators are really going to have to come up with game plans. They're going to have to really have guys on their scout team that are doing things to kind of resemble Jaden Daniels' ability to run. I kind of compare it to, reminds me of maybe, or similar to Lamar Jackson, just that feel when he takes off. He just has a really good feel when he's in the open field to, you know how to pick up the maximum yardage as possible. And he has that quick start to really pick up yards in a hurry, not just scrambling, not just when he's rolling outside, scrambling to the outside, but also can, you know, put his foot in the ground and cut inside and scramble between the tackles. So I really like that part of Jaden Daniels' game. So, you know, you're hearing that he's more polished as a passer, but that's one of those things that, you know, the improvement as a passer, you know, I don't know what people are seeing in practice. I've watched him just throw a little bit in practice, but that's one thing that once we get to the game, we'll really see if he's improved in that aspect, as far as far as that, you know, his passing improving a lot. But yeah, Jaden Daniels, a really talented player, really a legitimate threat as a runner, and I'm excited to see how he performs this upcoming season. But all right, a couple minutes left, guys. So yeah, we'll start talking about. I guess we'll talk about some what ifs. You know, what if LSU lost? What if they lost a couple games early? I think, to me, with all the hype LSU's getting, I think that's hard to fathom. But they do have a tough stretch of Florida State, then they play Grambling, which you believe they should win, and then they play 3 SEC opponents in a row in Mississippi State, Arkansas, and Ole Miss, I believe. So you have quietly a pretty tough stretch. Now, Mississippi State, Ole Miss, Arkansas, those are games where you're LSU, you immediately think to yourself, as an LSU fan, yeah, we're going to win those games. Those are just games that, you know, you kind of go down the win, you play the win-loss game, and you immediately put a W next to them. But those are games where, you know, when it leads up, when the ball's kicked off and it's 0-0, you're kind of going, dang, packed crowd today. Dang, Ole Miss is undefeated. While Ole Miss, they've played well so far offensively. So those are games, I guess the point I'm trying to make is those are games where you kind of check a W in the preseason, but once you get out there and start playing them, it's a different ball game. It's you know, that's when you realize LSU's going to have to go 4 quarters. Might be a tight, tough, physical game that really takes a lot out of you. Even if you don't, hopefully you come away with no major injuries. But even if you do win, You might be banged up a little bit, and then you got to go play another SEC team. So it's just a 3-week stretch where you got to get up every game and you got to play your hardest. And yeah, it's the grind of the SEC West, and Brian Kelly embraces that challenge. So I'm going to wrap with that, guys. Thanks for tuning in to Bayou Bengals Football. Make sure to stay tuned for more episodes and clips from the show.